discussing the state of the Copperbelt and sorry, just some technical glitch. Let me just ensure that that is resolved. Okay, I think that has been done. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining us. Today we'll be discussing the state of the Copperbelt. It's a special place. I think it has a special place in our country. It has built the country Zambia. It has proceeded to build Salisbury, which is now Harare and Pretoria. The wealth from the Copperbelt has driven wealth of mine owners who are billionaires and countries that are the relationship with our country. We are discussing the state of the Copperbelt. From the Copperbelt, we can learn what can happen to Northwestern province and how we can avoid it, and how can we ensure that we retain the wealth that we have. I think that's the purpose of the discussion today. Let us begin. The national anthem tells us that we should stand and sing of a Zambia that is proud, that is united, and that is free. A country ruled by instilling fear is not a land of the free. It is not a country that is safe, peaceful, or secure. We want a country that is admired and not feared. We want a country that our forefathers and foremothers dreamt of. A country that Mbikusta Lewanika hoped for. A country that Harry Mwanga Nkumbula prayed for. A country that Kenneth David Kaunda dedicated his life for. A country that Simon Mwansaka Pwepwe wished for. A country that Zambia fought for in 1912, when the first welfare association was formed in Mwenzo in Nakonde. In 1935, when we formed the first trade union after a Copperbelt-wide national strike by our miners. In 1948, when the first trade union was formed and the first political party was formed. In 1953, when Harry Mwanga Nkumbula took over from Mbikusta Lewanika and narrowed the focus to getting independence for our country. 1953 is also a year that a federation was formed between Nyasaland, Northern Rhodesia and Southern Rhodesia. Nyasaland was to provide for labor and human resource. Copperbelt provided for the mining and Southern Rhodesia, and administration was done in Salisbury for 10 years. This proceeded. In 1964, we got our independence. In 1991, we retained our freedom because we went back to multi-party state after a one-party state. In 2011, the second time an opposition leader won elections and beat an incumbent president, 2021. similar event for 3 times in our country. Powers have changed hands in a peaceful manner, and incumbents have accepted the results, even if they were against them, even if they felt they had leverage to cancel such an election. A country that our faith leaders, the Zambia Conference of Catholic Bishops, the Council of Christian Churches in Zambia, the Evangelical Fellowship churches in Zambia, the country they stand with and pray for. We want a country that our people have always fought for, always aspired to be a prosperous country. A country not yoked in tyranny to those that think that they are kings or they are emperors. Our country is endowed with natural resources, natural wealth, wildlife still in its natural and wild sanctuaries, magical waterfalls, one of the best, some of the best soils in Africa are in our country, agricultural soils, a friendly people and an enviable heritage. We desire a country where it is possible to be prosperous, even if you were born in the village, compound, township, or city. We want a country where it is possible to have an education system that gives knowledge, that empowers, that gives life and survival skills, with an economy that rewards entrepreneurship and innovations, an economy that is in the hands, and a country that is that rewards hard work. If you work hard, it doesn't matter where you are from. It doesn't limit where you are going, where housing is decent, where jobs are decent, and where you can earn a living and a living wage. God bless our country. God bless our people. God save whoever is messing up with our country. I know our scrollers are not scrolling. I have to check out what is happening and how to input those scrollers for the topic and for our matter. I can see the videos that we uploaded are also not here. It's going to be a bit technical challenge because I have videos from the riots on the Copperbelt in Chingola that I want to play. And I've got the scrollers. I noticed that the scrollers are not coming on. Where should we place for our scrollers? Because we use a software that, if you have noticed, that is like a news channel software. Okay, I'll see how I can figure that out. I don't have my videos, and I don't have because we have a number there on my scrollers. Today, we are discussing the state of the Copperbelt and the challenges of the Copperbelt. We need to discuss it. This has been the economic lifeline of our country, the Copperbelt. Remember, before privatization, the Copperbelt had a golden age for our country and for the Copperbelt. They supported sports, they ran schools, the mines ran hospitals. Some of the best hospitals in the country were in the mines. Some of the best schools were in the mines. The life of miners were highly paid. The mine resolved issues of roads infrastructure, housing, sewerage, water, power. Everything was done by the mines. It was such a golden age. And that fell apart beginning the 90s when we privatized the mines. What you see today is as a result of the decisions we made in the 1990s, and we want to review that. Just let me see if I can just restore the scrollers. Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience. So we had ZCCM that was running over 11, consolidated copper mines, and they're the conglomerate. So you had RCM in Luanshya, you had Nchanga in Chingola, you had Rokana in Kitwe, you had all these that formed ZCCM. And ZCCM even began to diversify. It had companies like Impelembe Drilling, it had farms, it had all sorts of things. It was a giant. It was listed among the 500 largest companies in the world. That was ZCCM. The IMF came in the 90s, told Dr. Kaunda that you need to privatize. You can't run the mines, they're making losses. And you need to privatize. Remember, we had 273 state-owned enterprises. Some count 225, but if you look at the records, it was 273. And they said, you have to privatize. The state has no business in business. Kaunda tried to prevaricate when he began to implement the IMF program in 1985. By 1987, the economy was so dire that food riots, because the measures are very, very strong from the IMF. They tell you to cut down on public enterprise investment, no construction, no infrastructure, no nothing. You run on a bare minimum. They try to restructure your income. They try to ensure that you run a cash budget or run a government based on the resources available. And before long, Kaunda was failing. The food riots in 1987. And Dr. Kaunda was forced to abandon the IMF. He even cursed them, even withdrew from the IMF. We made record that we're the first country to withdraw from the IMF. It didn't take long. By 1988, Dr. Kaunda was back, to the IMF, and the IMF even brought stricter programs. They wanted him to privatize quickly state-owned enterprises. They wanted him to shed the civil service. It was ballooned. They wanted state-owned enterprises that were loss-making to be closed, liquidated, or sold. Dr. Kaunda couldn't move with that pace. Remember, he had preached a socialist policy. He had preached a communist type of government. And for 17 years, he had been on the path when he moved the economy from the private sector to the public sector. So he couldn't. And there were winds of change, and Zambia was the first one to go multi-party democracy in 1989-90. ZCTU at its Congress in 1989 called for the return to multi-party state. They said the system we're pursuing had collapsed. Internationally, we had the bipolar world, the US on one side and the Soviet Union on the other. The Soviet Union was crumbling. China was limping, and China, wasn't the big giant it is now. And socialism just became like a sociopath. No one wanted it. It had failed. Capitalism and liberal policies, market economy, is what was attractive. And the breed of young people joined hands in 1990 and forced Dr. Kaunda to return to multi-party democracy. And by 1991, we had a new government under the MMD led by former ZCTU president, who had been president for 17 years of ZCTU, assumed the position of president. The IMF knocked on the door. They said, your economy is bad. You have a $7 billion debt. Your economy, its GDP is only about $2 billion to $3 billion at the time, $2 to $3 billion. Your debt is unsustainable. It's almost 3 times your GDP. You cannot afford this. You have to shed your civil service. You have to privatize, liquidate, sell, dispose all your state-owned enterprises. So they began a liquidation, what was called liberalizing the economy, where the forces ran the economy. We opened our floodgates, our borders were open. Tariffs, the famous tariffs that Donald Trump is implementing, is what every closed economy would implement to protect your local industry. We abandoned all tariffs, and all of a sudden the shops were full because we had goods coming from Salisbury, from Zimbabwe, from South Africa. And it looked very attractive because for the first time you could find Coca-Cola, apples. You could find anything you wanted, jam, bread returned to the markets. Buses were now available at your bus stop. It was very attractive because this liberal policy appeared to resolve all our problems of 40 years were resolved in one strike of adopting the liberal and market-oriented policies. It was not to be. We ran through a privatization process. By the year 2000, we had privatized all major assets, and we're so blind. We were not seeing that these Bazungus were picking up the prizes, the beautiful prizes of our economy, of our strong state-owned enterprises. Cement, you can never make losses on cement. That went to Lafarge, the French. Zambia sugar, you take sugar every day. It went to CDC. Another parastatal, that was what was odd about it. Because they were telling us that government has no business in business. They were saying that we should not own any state-owned enterprises. But who bought Zambia sugar? It was another British parastatal, a British state-owned enterprise called CDC. In fact, it was a huge scandal because Valentine Chitalu, who's now a long-time business partner to President Hakainde Hichilema, was the one that was in charge of privatization. And as soon as he sold Zambia sugar to the British CDC, he became a local representative of CDC in Zambia. Why didn't he declare interest? So there were all those issues. We were blind. We were just happy that buses were available at the bus stop. We were happy that you could go to a shop and buy whatever you wanted. And for the first time, we thought that the quality of life was at its best. We had no idea that Indola Industrial was closing down, that the new buyers of all those industrial companies were shipping our equipment to South Africa, to Europe, to Madagascar, wherever they could set up. It was far cheaper because remember we had opened the floodgates. Our borders were open. Our tariffs were down. We said we are a liberal economy and we subjected our local enterprise and local entrepreneurs to international competition, such a nascent economy. We said, no, you have to compete with South Africa. You have to compete with China. You have to compete with Germany. We had no idea that equipment at Lenco, that equipment at Dunlop, equipment at where were being shipped either to the DRC, to Harare, or to South Africa. By the time President Dr. Chilwa was realizing there's something wrong with this, he applied brakes. This was in 1996. It was too late. I think we had sold nearly all our state-owned enterprises, except for those in critical sectors such as PTC, before we broke it down into Zamtel and Zampost, or the mines were still under our hands, and a few companies like Zesco were still in our hands. And then we said, no, there should be a process. You would remember that Dr. Chilwa was forced that he should sell the mines. They even formed what was called the Kafue Consortium. This is again where the British CDC and others formed this consortium, and they wanted to buy the entire mine as one unit. And you should have seen, because the copper was only trading at $2,000 a ton, just $2,000 a ton. It had been depressed for a long time. And they said, your mines are making a loss of $1 million a day. You are a poor country. You can't afford these losses. You can't afford these subsidies. You can't afford it. The mines are dilapidated. Your mines have no capital equipment. You have to sell them. The amount of production and the number of workers you have, you cannot sustain these mines. It became a condition for any support They even tied it to our debt and debt cancellation, that until you sell the mines. Government was under so much pressure. And we are not helped when an international program is crafted. In fact, it's a local media. They even line up the experts, the so-called economists, who come to preach to you and me how bad government is, how bad government should sell the mines, how wasteful this government is because it's losing up to $1 million running the copper mines. Well, Chiluba yielded, but he gave one condition. He said, no, we are not selling the entire ZCCM as one unit. This is a conglomerate. This is one of the largest companies in the world. It's even rated on S&P 500 richest companies. It's listed there, and it's among not even just the lowest, it's among the top companies. He says, no, we are not going to give this to Anglo-American because Anglo-American had preemptive rights to buy the entire ZCCM. He said, no, we'll break the mines in the units that they are. We'll separate the core assets and the non-core assets. And for the non-core assets, we'll sell them to whoever. If it's in Pelembe, if it is the farms, if it is the housing will go to the workers, and the companies that are not core will be sold. And for the core assets, we'll invite other, we'll unbundle ZCCM. And by the year 2000, we had sold Luansha Mines to Binani, a company from India, which somehow still has links to, I think, to KCM, similar links. We sold what remained. KCM was the largest unit. We sold it to Anglo-America. First Quantum bought Bwana Mkubwa. First Quantum Bena Pasco, why Shirefe na Matropico. They said, no, we can mine that dump in Bwana Mkubwa and we can process the mines. First Quantum got Bwana Mkubwa. And so there were units that were sold differently. And by 2000, 2001, we had almost completed the sale of our mines, including Kansanshi. We retained what was known as a golden share of 20% in all the mines. And then we opened up exploration, because remember, exploration was a restricted affair for ZCCMIH. So we opened up the books, we opened up the knowledge, and that's how you find the mines begin to emerge in Northwestern Province, where you have Barrick Gold and First Quantum. They emerged from the documents that were available and exploration that was done by ZCCMIH. And the golden age of mining ended by the year 2000. The new owners had mining development agreements. They were not obliged to pay taxes because all of a sudden they had favorable tax terms, because they could bring in capital equipment and deduct it from their profit under the name of reinvestment. They had their own rates for power. While you and me pay very expensive for power, they had their own rate. And for environment, they said if they polluted, it's up to government. That's why they pay taxes. And they said we'll have no reason to maintain the mines. They gave up the beautiful schools, the beautiful hospitals, and the townships were given to our people, and the decay immediately set in. And for the new mine owners, they says, if we're to la tax, it's up to your government to develop these areas. The tax which they were not paying, in effect. For 20 years, if you look at all these mines, they barely paid any taxes. So the state of the Copperbelt is as a result of the decisions, especially the ones we made at privatization. Fast forward, let's go to 2021. Let's go to 2018, 2019. There has been an awakening after President Michael Sata came into office. Remember what he did first. For example, he canceled the privatization of Zamtel, which was sold to the Libyans. He said, no, this was corrupt and it wasn't done properly, and an entity like Zamtel should be run, it should be a state-owned enterprise. They said this loss-making, how can a mobile company make losses? only Zamtel makes losses in the entire Africa. And for these new mobile network companies, you only see that it's only Zamtel that makes losses. Why does it make losses? Is it its legacy history? It has the largest infrastructure of landlines where you can, onboard internet. It has the largest for fiber, I think, before they got it and took it to Zesco. It has the largest distribution network. And then it adopted Zamtel, the new mobile line that has never grown, even after giving it as much as possible the infrastructure, such as new transmitters across the country. You need to look at Zamtel because it justifies those critics that say the state can't run an enterprise. If an entity like Zamtel is failing, Zesco is failing, you give room to those that are saying only the private capitalize, this capitalist, if it is run under those terms, can they succeed? So the Copperbelt has been in a state of decay. The new owners profited from the mines, paid no taxes. They became billionaires. If about Shila Filongoma. So President Michael Sata is the one that started this talk. We need to reclaim our economy by reclaiming our mines. But how do you do it? The mine agreements. I can even backtrack to Musokotwane and President Mwanawasa. Mwanawasa had a good Minister of Finance in the name of Ngandu Magande. Ngandu Magande said, Mr. President, these mines, there's wind for now. Copper is no longer at $2,000 per ton when we sought the mines. It's now ranging to $6,000, $7,000. There is no way we would allow them to make such profits. $4,000 per ton. When they got these mines, it was at 2,000 tons. And these are assets for our people. So Ngandu Magande crafted what is known as a windfall tax. He abrogated the mining agreements. There were 20-year mining agreements, but he decided to abrogate those mines. And just a minute, I've got a message from my... Okay. He said we can abrogate those mining agreements. And sadly about the mining agreements, you can never see them. They're even stronger than the Constitution. Some people don't know. I will challenge the journalist. When we say First Quantum, Barrick Gold, KCM, Mopani have mining development agreements that are favorable, there are certain things they can't pay, certain taxes they can't pay, certain environmental concerns they can't commit to. There are certain incentives, they have tax and other incentives. And government will tell you, those are lies. Mwamba is telling lies. Ask them to give you the mining development agreement. It is a sacred document. It can never be released to the public. And Ngandu Magande was so brave. For the first time in the history of our country, we saw the mining development agreements. They were not published in Zambia. They were not released by government. Maybe they were, but we saw them in London newspapers. Currently, there are mining development agreements for First Quantum. Ask Pokabuso if he can give you that. He can't. They are more protected than the Constitution. If you break the mining development agreement, there are serious sanctions against you. Ngandu Magande was a daring patriot. He decided to break with those agreements and instituted the windfall tax. And for the first time in 20 years, the Zambian government earned something from the mines. $600 million in 2008, for the first time since the mines were privatized. Fast forward to 2018, we implemented what is called non-deductible mineral royalty tax, because we had learned over the years how they don't pay tax. They do it within the law. They are not breaking the law. But the incentives they have, for example, ngavashitachi mazembe, vashtefuma buckets, vashtefi, they will come and deduct it from the profits. They will even claim VAT on top of it. And for every equipment, now any equipment here $1 million, they'll price it at $8 million. And you have no mechanisms to verify. And they will therefore even pay the import duties on it so that they can claim the millions from ZRA. And then they can deduct that amount as a capital allowance from the profit. In the end, they always declare negative profit because of those schemes. And remember, another scheme which we call transfer schemes is they will hire expatriates. A company from India or Switzerland will hire these expatriates. And what will it do? It will tell you that these expatriates, each person you're paying them $30,000. But these expatriates might be paid $3,000 in their own country. And the difference goes to the company. So there are all these schemes, tax dodging schemes the mines engage in. They have the best lawyers in the world, best accountants, best auditors that they hire. That department is the best department in the mining sector, not even mining itself, because they need to cheat you from the taxes. So by 2018, we had seen the tricks, and another patriot, Margaret Mwanakatwe, put her foot down. She abolished this VAT tax refund. She abolished the mineral royalty tax and put the non-deductible one, a standard one. Whether you've made profit, whether now whether you have gone to Europe or you've gone to the village the whole month, I expect my rent. That's what the non-deductible mineral royalty tax mean. The mines, even if it's on care and maintenance, they have to pay that 3% or 6%. For the first time again in over 15 years, we collected revenue from the mines in 2019, $1 billion. Even in 2020, another $1 billion. In 2021, another $1 billion. 2022, under Hichilema, because now Musokotwane had changed, we still collected another $1 billion for the first time from the mining sector. Musokotwane is a special case, and we need to discuss him briefly. When President Mwanawasa died, Musokotwane was he was a special assistant to President Mwanawasa in charge of economics. Magande was a minister of finance. When Mwanawasa died, remember Magande tried to challenge President Rupia Banda, was a vice president, acting president, and now tends to be president. So there was a huge fallout in 2008, 2009, and Magande was fired. Stumbeko, who was chairperson, who was a special assistant for the president in charge of economics, was then appointed as Minister of Finance. What did Musokotwane do? He abolished the windfall tax. The tax that had ended us in 2008, $600 million, that had even allowed Mwanawasa to start those Formula One roads, if you remember, that were completed by Rupia Banda later. For the first time, we had money. But Musokotwane said, no, abolish this windfall tax. It's stifling investment in the mines. The mines are not working. The mines were threatening to close. So remove this windfall tax. That was his first point of call of duty. Look at his 2009 budget speech. His first call was to abolish the windfall tax, a tax that was earning this country $600 million a year, potentially, and more. When Hichilema won elections, who did he appoint as Minister of Finance? Dr. Stumbeko Musokotwane. What was Musokotwane's first point of call? Was to abolish the non-deductible mineral royalty tax. A tax that had earned the country for 3 years $1 billion a year. This man, like he did in 2008, his first point of call was to abolish that tax. Abamwishi wa Musokotwane weri mwamono uyu muntu mushabombele chalo nanguni employee wa mines. Why does he do these things against the state? Why does he do these things against government? And our tax income, tax revenue from the mining sector plummeted from $1 billion to barely $200 to $300 million, and it has been stuck there. We come to the Copperbelt. First, he gave them incentives. I've told you, you need to demand for mineral development agreement that government signed with First Quantum. When we say they have incentives, we need to challenge government to publish them so that we show you what incentives they have. It's just not tax incentives. There are other non-tax obligations that they run away from. Vedanta has a special story. They came to KCM. KCM was given to them at $25 million. This is a company whose value was stated by Rothschild of London, who were tasked to sell this mine. It was valued at $650 million in 2002. And then remember, it has copper ore reserves under Concola Deep that are worth $200 billion if you are to exploit them, because you need one of the deepest mines in the world. You need to dewater it because it sits on a rock, on like an aquifer where there's so much water. So you need to spend first a depth and then huge pumps to take it out. But it is established from 1960-70 that the largest deposits of copper in Zambia are under Concola Deep. So the mine was worth $650 million market value, not asset value, but market value. But it was given to Vedanta for $25 million. And Vedanta, as soon as he came, he didn't even spend any money here. Because I think he went to Indobank, got the first deposit instead of $10 million and paid the Zambian government. He didn't even bring any money. In the first quarter, he made $90 million. $90 million for a mine he had bought for $25 million. Because at the time of the sale, we had copper on the seas and reserved copper up to $76 million. They also took over bank accounts that had millions of dollars. I've always stated that if there is the largest scandal in our country, it's a sale of KCM to Vedanta. Because here is an asset valued at $650 million, as huge reserves, as disposable income, and you sell it for $25 million. And that sale, the World Bank was on it with us. The World Bank even said, sell quickly, you are making losses, sell quickly. Because Anglo-American had just dumped that mine on us. You know, there's an allegation that they supported the candidate who didn't win. So to punish Zambia, they withdrew. But if you look at the international workings, is that they said they wanted to concentrate on diamond and diamond mining, diamond and gold. They had De Beers in Botswana, and I think Anglo Gold in South Africa. So they claim that copper was no longer profitable. But essentially, there is another political story that, look, they were punishing Zambia for that election in 2001. Whatever it is, Zambia was in a desperate situation. And the World Bank even ensured that that sale was to take place. They even pledged a $20 million alongside the $25 million that was given to to Vedanta. So if there's any sale, that was the biggest scandal in our country, other than the 1971 scandal about the mines, to require another day for us to explain it. The sale of KCM to Vedanta is one of the biggest scandals in our country. So $25 million. The guys made $90 million within 30 days in the first quarter, within 90 days. And the man has been minting millions from then. The following year, he was at a business conference where he boasted. He says, look, I went to Zambia. I'm a poor Indian. I had no idea. I found the Minister of Finance and everyone else waiting for me. He says, they drove me in government cars. They took me to this international hotel, and I had no money. I said, I have no money. They said, no, whatever you can pay. I said, I have 25 million, which I didn't even have. They said, sign. And he says, since then I've been making $500 million a year. Most of you have seen that video. So for 20 years, Vedanta didn't pay taxes to Zambia Revenue Authority. It didn't pay obligations to NAPSA. It accumulated a debt of $1.5 billion as at 2019. There's an audit that was done, reputable audit, 2015, 2016 audit. You can have access to it. They might not give it to you, but we must find ways of making such information public, because they like putting secret. Yet that's where the details are. So Vedanta was an abusive investor, a rogue investor. Vedanta became a billion industry in the period that they owned KCM. KCM, kuchingola, munenefu kwa ishile shala. Our suppliers were not paid, our contractors were not paid, ZRIA were not paid. So government made a decision to take over the mines. We may not agree on the form. Should it have been liquidation? Should it have been just a cancellation of mining license? Because there were creditors like Standard Chartered Bank of South Africa, who this man had borrowed $700 million and they were threatening to get assets. But whatever it is, by 2019 it was resolved that you cannot have this investor who has committed to invest this $1.5 billion he talks about for 20 years, and the $1.5 billion has never come. His investment in Konkola Deep is not here or there. He had said he'd do it in 3 years. It's been 20 years. And then he doesn't pay taxes. And then he brings in this big number of so-called expatriates. So a decision, consensus from the industry, from government, that government must take over KCM. We took over KCM. I will not discuss the liquidation. The point I'm addressing is that it doesn't matter what decision was made. We needed to take over KCM. For Mopani, we were very lucky. Because Glencore had invested in this mine $4.5 billion from 2014 to 2020. They sank 3 brand new shafts in Kitwe, Sinclaronia, Henderson in Mufulira, and another one in Kitwe. They invested in 2 new smelters. It became one of the most modern mines in the world. So when Glencore said they are putting it under care and maintenance and are going, government was very interested. ZCCMIH was excited. Why was Glencore abandoning an asset that they had just invested $4.5 billion? It's very simple. The directors were being pursued for corruption. The Serious Frauds Office in London, the FBI in the US were on them. They had started criminal charges against them for their corruption in Africa. So the directors saw that they'll lose the assets they have across the world. So they began to dump these assets. They sold their mine and their interest in South Africa. They sold their zinc mine, I think, in Namibia. They sold their mine in Australia, and in Eastern Europe. They sold their mine. And they abandoned. They said, we are putting under care and maintenance Mopani. ZCMIH was very excited. ZCMIH said, no, we just need $300 million. I want to. They've sunk in. This is a brand new mine, one of the best mines. If you begin to produce, it can give you 200,000 metric tons of copper per year. You can jump it to, from the current 100,000 to 200 to even 300,000. Because you have a new mining. You have 3 new shafts accessing fresh coal. You have 2 new smelters. And you have other facilities, and the mine has been modernized. And we were all excited. We're in the elections. We're fighting as usual. They keep us busy doing foolish things. We were fighting with an election. Ichilema won. ZCCMI said, can we borrow this $300 million? The local banks are willing to put it up together because this mine is brand new. Twashef your engine, tulishe imotoka, can we? Ichilema said, no, we are getting you an equity partner. They said, sir, look, Glencore left $4.5 billion worth of investment in Mopani. In motoka ya kwasha fye. And we'll give you, even this year alone, we'll give you 100,000 to 200,000 metric tons. You are inefficient, you are incompetent, you have no capacity. Because at that stage, we owned the mine 100%. Because Glencore sold it to us. They said, look, you, the CMIH and government, you know, I've just spent $4.5 billion in this mine. I can't walk out. I want $1.5 billion. We said, we don't have that $1.5 billion. They said, no, give us marketing rights. In a period of 2 years, we'll probably recover because the mine is ready. Just look for $300 million and begin production. And when we sell your copper within 3 years, 2 years, we'll recover $1.5 billion and you can be with the mine. So what did he do? He put Mopani on the ice. He put KCM decision on the ice. For 2 years, our people became desperate and desperate. Nothing was happening on the Copperbelt. The tempers were rising. It's normal. Remember the $1 million a day loss in the years 2000? That story they gave us at this collapse on the Copperbelt. They need that desperation so that when they sneak in a solution, you have no powers or time to question it. And that's what was done. After 2 years, you know, Ichilema appointed Dorika Banda, the daughter to President Rupia Banda, a distinguished economist and banker. She began the process. She was very excited. She knew the assets of the mines, and she thought under ZCMIH, look, they want an equity partner. We can get a credible, quick equity partner because all we need is someone either to pay off Glencore, this $1.5 billion, or someone to give us $300 million and we begin the production. Dorika began work. She advertised for the mines. She appointed Rothschild. Our Rothschild, na watabaya. From privatization, if we can shift, they are the only consultant. But they came on the scene again for Mopani. And they picked 10 listed investors to take over as equity partner to Mopani. The announcements were made by Paul Kabuswe. He showed progress. President Ichilema shows optimism. We have 10 lined up investors to be equity partners to Mopani. By 2023 June, a list was whittled down to 4. So there were 4 major companies, Sibanye Stillwater of South Africa, and 2 Chinese firms, and another entity that broke up from Glencore when Glencore broke down in South Africa. A group of the executives came together and formed a mining company. And we're given an update. Mopani will be opened soon. It will be back to production because there is this process. In November 2023, we were shocked by a new announcement that there is a new investor called IRIH from Dubai, who was not announced among the 10, who was not announced among the top 4. This international resource holding came from nowhere, that they are the ones that will be equity partner, and the process was rushed. They didn't involve parliament. They didn't want any of the questions we are discussing here, where we can say, we have $4.5 billion investment in Mopani. Mopani has 3 brand new shafts. It has new smelters. What is this investor coming to do? What is he bringing to the table? They rushed the process. They didn't involve parliament as required by Article 210, Sub-Article 2. And we have this new investor. Many in the industry think that that's just a cover, that this could actually be President Hakainde Hichilema himself owning Mopani, knowing the value of Mopani and the critical investment it received from 2014 to 2020. IRIH Why they can't start production, we don't know. They've been doing some minimal production, like the production that was there. For Vedanta under KCM, they have a debt of $1.5 billion. They negotiated again, that contract will never be given to you because it's one of the largest scandals as well. They've exempted Vedanta from paying that $1.5 billion now, but they gave Vedanta back the mine. So ZESCO is not paid the millions of dollars. ZRA is not going to be paid the millions of dollars. NAPSA and others will not be paid that money. They owe up to $1.5 billion. Some private creditors like Standard Chartered Bank and others may be paid privately. Kumbari, but essentially, again, it's Zambia to lose. Vedanta is back. We warned that Vedanta is broke internationally. It has a $9 billion debt. There's no way it's going to find the money that is required to run KCM. And while it was running KCM, it had literally abandoned mining. It began to rely on the ore from the DRC to process. It was engaged in mining activities that actually even depreciated the mining assets. Konkola Deep, it had stalled, and it requires fresh money to begin that process where that $200 billion worth of copper lies. So, because Vedanta is broke. Don't listen to these press conferences. Just Google on your own what New York Times is saying, what the Guardian of UK, what even the Financial Times of India is talking about Vedanta. It has a huge debt, $9 billion bond. It has just rescheduled it that it will pay in 2017. In fact, Vedanta, when he pledged that he'll bring in $1.1 billion and we signed the agreement, he issued an international statement in London that now I have KCM. KCM has Konkola Deep. Konkola Deep has $200 billion worth of reserves. Why was Aguero speaking like that in London? He's speaking to the bankers. My debt is $9 billion internationally. I've got an asset in Zambia that's worth $200 billion. So what's $9 billion? He was speaking to the sentiments of the markets because some of the money he got, other than from banks, he got them from the markets in London. So he needed to speak. He was not lying, he was telling the truth. He was bragging about the assets that KCM is. He says that's one of the wealthiest mines in the world because it has, under Konkola Deep, that reserve is worth $200 billion, independently verified. They even allowed and okayed his bond. His bond, it was due to be paid in 2024. It was rescheduled to be paid in 2027 on the mere action to give Vedanta back to KCM. Just that action of giving KCM back to Vedanta, it ended him up to 3-4 years reprieve from the $9 billion he owes the market. We questioned the process. We talked about the process. When Akabuso Wale when Mwamba propagandist, the opposition, they failed. They closed the mines. Don't listen to them. We warned you, Vedanta is broke. We want to work. No, they will bring $1.5 billion. $1.5 billion from 2023. From your announcements, Kabuswe, where is the $1.1 billion that $1.5 billion that Vedanta promised? When we pushed and questioned, they said, no, now there's even a court order. It's now a settlement. We've signed in court. Vedanta will pay all creditors. We'll start with $250 million to all contractors and suppliers, and we'll begin to pay everyone as binding. They are just buying time. Vedanta is broke. No bank is willing to give it money. It has a huge debt. No local banks is willing to give him money because he left another huge debt. Kabuswe Hichilema kept on promising and pledging us. Teoko tuwa mwene last week. Basi we're taking over the assets of KCM because they're failing to pay our debt. They even obtained the FIFA. They even went to seize assets under KCM. That's where we're at. Ayamangalo walechitaba Vedanta kumufulira kuchingola kuchirila bombwe. Pariwa Mopani pena is just another big scandal because the ownership is not properly structured, it's not properly owned. And then sadly, why did we have the riots? We need to speak to this matter very briefly. The Copperbelt has what we call Tuyeta Tama Black Mountains. Kukitwe, Kulwansha, Kumufulira, Kuchingola. The Chinese said they had a new process in which they can process. Because remember, this is dumped copper. By the time we're mining and dumping it, and our forefathers knew that they didn't have the technology to extract up to 100% from the soils, that copper or cobalt. So they did leaching methods, these cheap methods, using acid and others, and they obtained copper. But the bulk of it then was being piled as a dump, hoping that technology will come in which they can then reprocess those dumps. So after 100 years of mining, we have these copper deposits, cobalt deposits under those dumps. The geology department in conjunction with the World Bank did a study for the Black Mountain in Kitwe alone, the Black Mountain in Kitwe alone. You should look for that study. It was worth $5.1 billion, that dump. It's the reason the Chinese bought, and they were supposed to put up a modular processing plant there. But the run-up with the Jerabos never allowed that Chinese company to process that dump. That dump worth $5 billion has been decimated under Hakainde Hichilema. 1 year, pari flat pari. Mwalipitapo wanekitwe. That dump, according to the study that was done by the University of Zambia in conjunction with the World Bank, which was worth $5 billion, is cleared. Because abana beso amajera boss bafenga basendela over bashisha kuma Chinese, ama Chinese ebalish very ashididia, and they become billionaires living in Hong Kong, living in Europe. Our people who get some small dollars, they'll buy a car, they'll buy a BMW, they'll buy a Range Rover, they'll buy, a Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon. But it's nothing. Those are drops to the buyers. That mine is down. The remaining dumps have been given to President Hichilema's company that is associated with him. I'm saying this not to spite him, okay? So there's a company called Jubilee Metals. The CEO, Leon Koza from South Africa, I know him. I mean, the chairman, Dr. Matthews Poza, who is CEO in Zambia. One of the directors is Muna Hantuba. You know Valentine Chilufi and Muna Hantuba on all the companies that were associated with President Hakainde Hichilema. The two have been business associates for decades. So Muna Hantuba is a Zambian face for Jubilee Metals. Jubilee Metals got the Mufulira slag dump. The Mufulira slag dump, after the Black Mountain in Kitwe, is said to be the second richest, copper reserve, the Mufulira slag dump. So there was somehow, as soon as the agreement was done with IRIH, Mopani, it's like that's what motivated the sale. So Mopani is immediately taken over by RIH. IRIH immediately signed an agreement with Jubilee Metals, this company that is associated with Muna Hantuba and President Hakainde Hichilema. And it's like they want to use the Mufulira slag dump to raise money, then to run Mopani. So Badi Fumiapo Abana, Badi Isala, and Jubilee Metals are the ones, even the mining dump in Luansha. The price that ZCCMIH had put this mining dump was $30 million. Jubilee Metals have paid $18 million for it. There are 260 million tons of copper-rich reserves under the Mufulira slag dump. That so-called West Rock is one of the wealthiest mines in the world if you have the technology. Jubilee Metals says they have the technology. They are putting up this modular system, and they're recovering. They say they'll be recovering 20,000 metric tons per year at a production cost of $4,000. Remember, the price of copper is $9,000, $10,000. So they'll be reaping profits. And I have the video. I don't know what's happening here. I have the video of President Hakainde Hichilema. I have two videos where President Hakainde Hichilema is pledging and supporting that that he will never give the mining dumps to foreigners. That's what Hakainde Hichilema promised. And I have the two videos. Maybe I'll just upload them on my page later. And these mining dumps, he said, he spoke in Kitwe. There's a video in Kitwe, and there's a video at Community House when the youths visited him. We'll put them on my page, where he said, I will never give them to foreigners. It will be up to you youths. You form cooperatives. But the two mining dumps, Mufulira slag dump and Luanshya dump, have gone to Jubilee Metals, a company from South Africa specializing in recovering copper and metals from these legacy mining dumps. And they appointed immediately President Hakainde Hichilema's long-time business associate, Muna Hantuba, is a chairperson of, is a representative on the board in Zambia. I want to open the phone lines. Let me just switch on this line. The state of the Copperbelt, as I begin to wind up. The state of the Copperbelt. Look, you have Kafue River polluted by a non-company. There's even an environmental fund that President Hakainde Hichilema's associated company, Africa Life Insurance, took over. It's worth $40 million. What is it doing about the poisoning? What is it doing about the poisoning? Then we have this mining company, because government announced just the other day, that they will not allow, they said they will not allow any fishing, because that river is poisoned from Kitwe up to Ngabwe, up to Central Province. So who will pay for the livelihood of our people? Another mining firm has polluted that river with heavy metals, acid to be very clear. So they are saying our people should not fish because they will die. So who will pay for that? Who will pay for the livelihood of our people? We want to acquire Sangafueniko 0973 078082. Landen pona imwene na landa fiafula. The state of Copperbelt is sad. It's a dead ghost towns unless we exploit and leverage on these opportunities. We shouldn't allow the benefits to go to foreign entities. I was laughing, I even wrote about it when Mingomba, cobalt mine owned by, those two American billionaires, they have some shares, said they had used AI to recover, to find some of the largest deposits of copper in the world. If you look at ZCCM records, that's part of the wealth of under KCM. The same, what do you call that trunk of copper? What do you call it? Someone can put in the comments. And ZCCM had listed this wealth that they found at Mungomba with AI. They haven't found anything. It's been there, and it's been there all along. 0973 078082. 0973 078082. I can't put it on the scrollers. I don't know what has happened. I don't know what to press to bring. I don't want to mess a broadcast, but I wanted to, the scrollers, I wanted them to come on and the number could be listed. But join in the discussion. Let's see if we can wind up. We have Kuomboka. We have Kuomboka festivities going on this Friday. We have a large number of our people praying in the showgrounds. For you who are listening to me, thank you very much for being with me. And I've done the broadcast because it can be replayed and replayed and replayed. So it's not necessarily for an audience. Yeah. Please call me on that number. Call me on this number. Let me say it again. 0973 078082. 0973 078082. Let's hear your contributions. Oh, sorry, I missed a call already. Wonderful. Oh, there have been many calls already. It's like I want to buy the issue number. Natasha, I want to call. Too many. Let's engage on the state of the Copperbelt and what needs to be done. Na limwene wa poka buswe wale wama abantu weso ama contractors and suppliers are just form companies so that we then can give you business. People already have companies. How many times do you want them to register? They have companies. Some are tax compliant. Some have been registered for many years. Some are on the books of these mining companies. Atika forming any companies. Similarly, my dear brother, my uncle, Mr. Milupi, was in Livingstone opening. Please call. I don't know why he's cutting. Please call. He was with engineers in the Engineering Institute of Zambia. Okay. Good evening. You are our first caller. Please make your contributions. Tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
Hello. Is it good evening or good afternoon?
Yeah. Say on your time, so it must be good evening where you are.
Yeah. My comment is, I'll start with Honorable Kabuswe. I wonder why Honorable Kabuswe has appointed himself as spokesperson for KCM as well as the MCM, which is Mopani. These are companies that should be able to defend themselves for whatever they are doing. That's not what we are seeing. The other thing is, how can we have government stopping its citizens doing every other mining activity and then giving those activities to companies that we hear are related, our owners are related to the people in government, thereby making everybody poorer and poorer. What is their interest? They want to see poor Zambians, or they want to build a middle class? Because at the moment, there's no middle class in Zambia. It's either you are poor or you are rich.
Yeah.
Especially on the Copperbelt, because the mines can't peel off whatever activities or gains that they are getting into the community. You find the number of people working in the mines have reduced. Their salaries are so small that even when they are paid, they can't go out and spend so that those who are not working can benefit. Yeah. The other, which is our biggest problem, is that we are relying on foreigners to come and create jobs. Ambassador Mwamba, that is not going to happen. Technology has changed. These investors, when they come, they want to maximize profits. So they will use machines. Where you are supposed to have 12 people drilling, using manual drilling machines, they'll bring in one big jumbo machine that will only have 3 people, 1 operator and 2 helpers. But if you look at what they are going to accomplish in 8 hours, it will be more than 20 people. So how are they going to employ people? They won't. We will increase production according to the projections that they've said, but there will be no employment created. That I can assure you. I think I want to end from there.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your contribution. Thank you very much for your contribution. Thank you very much for your contribution. Okay, the calls are coming in. Please, let's have the call. Let's hear from you. We're discussing the state of the Copperbelt and the concerns around the state of the Copperbelt. Both political. Okay, here's another caller. Caller, go ahead.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I would want to contribute on the mining, the removal of the non-deductible tax. Now, according to the argument that have been advanced by the minister, he says that they want to raise the production of copper to 3 million tons. Now, if we look into the revenue side of the budget, we know that pay-as-you-earn is the largest contributor of taxes to government revenue. So now, I don't know if the thinking of government has really moved towards the mark of 3 million tons of copper per year. They are seeing more people being employed, eventually contributing more in terms of taxes that pay to the government, then therefore increasing revenue if they can have a projection of how this increase in 3 million tons of copper would eventually also increase the revenues in our in terms of pay as you earn. But again, I should agree with technology has also changed. You can get to 3 million, but it doesn't mean you will have so many people employed by the mine. So that also is something that they need to look into. Maybe what they can do in this case is to increase the shareholding, like what is happening in Botswana, where government is fighting to increase the shareholding in the mines. That way, even as we get to the 3 million tons, we'll be able to benefit because we'll have maybe controlling shares in most of these mines, and the revenue coming from there will still come back to the country. So this is an issue that they need to carefully look into, because mining is the future of this country, and people should be allowed to contribute in terms of what would be the best way to move with regards to mining in this country. That way, the Zambians are going to benefit, and the investors will be happy also. That is my contribution. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Make your call, please. Thank you very much. Some more people are coming in. Please call before we close the program, we want your views about the state of the Copperbelt. It's in dire strait, high unemployment, production is low, cartels formed, policy decisions that never benefit both our people and the people on the Copperbelt, and that we risk taking, again, not learning from history, not recognizing a way to derive benefits from our natural resources. So please call. We take your calls. We want to hear from you. We've laid our case. We want you to contribute. More people are sending messages. Yeah. Someone has sent a message that his partners have gotten concerned about him. Yeah. They're no longer believing in him. They're not Monama desperation. Please call before we close your program, because there are many times after we close, that's when you begin to call the line. Call now. Let me just say the number once again. It's on WhatsApp. It's 0973 07. Oh, there's a call here. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, I'm doing fine. I wanted to contribute towards your interesting program.
Proceed. Tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
My name is Tembo.
Okay.
I'm calling from Europe.
Okay.
Yes. One of the most important things you can see is that there's a lot of interference in the mining sector by the government. So in the previous days, I've seen the army commander charging over the Chinese investors that they should avail him documents. I don't think the Zambia army should conduct itself on the mining sector, because there's a policy towards that, and there are legal officers who are supposed to do that. Second, with KCM and Mopani West Dump, the government leaders of interest, as you have alluded to, which has showed the youth to be direct beneficiaries of that, prior being promised by the president. This has resulted in what we have seen in the Copperbelt, which is looming, riots and the other things. So Zambia will continue to suffer because we have provided incentive for foreign investment to invest into our trade-oriented ventures, which has resulted into lack of employment, and as well as denying our local expertise opportunities to grow, both in local investment and also future investment. Thirdly, the power supply to the local people. If you want to grow direct local investment, you must ensure that the local people, especially the youth, who are more given the necessary enablers such as energy. Energy, I mean cheaper and reasonable electricity and petrol and diesel, so that it can help them do businesses. For example, the businesses such as welders, salons, barbers, and butcheries are mostly managed by the youth. These have been shielded off, meaning that there is no investment, and it has a direct bearing effect on the economical growth. So when you hear the government saying they are going to grow the economy by these figures, how can you grow it if these things are not provided to the locals? Also, the other bearing effect which has impacted the benefits of Zambia on the mining sector is the labor. We need to do labor audits, because if you go to First Quantum, you go to Lumwana, you will see that priority jobs are given to expert. And from 1964, Zambia has trained enough engineers. We have qualified engineers who have skills at an international level. I don't think we can fail to run a mine because we have Zambians who have done it before and they'll continue doing it before. Currently, we are doing 800,000 metric tons of copper, which is translated to almost $8 billion of copper per year, which is not even good to talk about that we are investing and we are doing well. Zambia used to beat Chile. We used to beat Congo, Chile, Codeco. But right now we are doing almost about $8 billion of copper. So if you have to see, even the mineral tax which we are collecting from the mine, we are not collecting it now. So meaning that the economy is also bleeding because we are not getting anything. The copper cannot be translated to the local people and the poor people. So we have also issues to do with environmental protection. There's a fund which is supposed to go there. As we complain that the Kafue River Basin is being polluted, what has the government done to ensure that we have environmental impact measures so that we cushion the impacts and the effects on the ecosystem? So it is not only about copper, it's about cobalt, it's about gold, it's about sugarat and other mineral assets. So what is the government doing? Because we have given them to manage those resources. They cannot reflect on the poor Zambians. As we are living now in the world of the dead, the unborn, we must make sure that these resources translate for our future. Otherwise, we're a dead country.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Someone calling from Europe. Let's see if we can take more calls. Yeah, the number has now appeared. Thank you very much on the chat. You can see it is 0973 078082. You can see it on the screen. Make your contributions before we close. Today we're discussing the state of the Copperbelt. I bothered to go to the history of the Copperbelt so that I could discuss the current status. Mopani, KCM, the mining dumps that Jubilee Metals has been awarded to process, to the exclusion of young people that were promised that they should form cooperatives, and this will be, yeah, okay. Thank you. Sorry, it's a call that's coming in. Sorry, you got cut somehow. Please just call again. You can check the number 0973 078082. Or maybe. Make your contribution. Good evening, please. Your name again and where you are calling us from.
Okay. I had contributed much earlier. Would you want me to come through again?
No problem. You've called.
No. This time it's who has called me.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm trying to return the call of this person who's been calling. Sorry. Please call us. 0973. As shown on the 0973 078082. I want to hear from you before we close. Thank you for the messages. Thank you for the messages. Whenever somebody is not the one we are talking about, is an interesting character. We will discuss him one day if he's worth it, but I would rather that we stick to the issues than discussing personalities. We're discussing the Copperbelt and make your contributions. Okay, move on to Makwale, sir. It's, I think, 21:30. Time to close. We were discussing the state of the Copperbelt. There were riots in Chingola as youths demanded to be taken back to the mining dump sites where they've been, scrounging for life. We haven't handled the issues of these waste dumps very well. They are very lucrative. They are worth billions of dollars. Even the Mufulira dump site is being discussed as one of the largest rock dumps in Africa. It's worth billions, and it has been given to Jubilee Metals, who says they'll be exploiting it at 20,000 metric tons per year, and that they'll be doing it under production cost of just below $4,000. But you know that the last 2-3 years, the price of copper is hovering around $9,000, $10,000. When it drops around $8,000, that's a lot of money. And the issues of Mopani, the disclosures have never been given in full. Mopani received a good investment. I think it required that it was handled better, if possible, even run by the CCMIH. KCM given back to Vedanta 2 years on, we've seen the crisis because the mother company, Vedanta, is literally broke. Whatever their story, the international reports don't put them in any other light. That way, we are not providing hope for the people on the Copperbelt. This has been the hub of the economy for the last 100 years. It has produced wealth for our people. We even saw the emerald mine in Lufwanyama close, threatened closure. Then, they did some armed tactics, arm-twisting tactics, and government even removed the 15% export tax. Yet that mine has become the largest mine of emeralds in the world. Colombia used to be number one. We have overtaken Colombia with emerald production. And what do we benefit? What do we derive from it? And these are the questions we keep on asking. Copper is trading at $10,000. How do we benefit from that if we don't own the mines? We had the golden opportunity where for the first time in the last 50 years, we owned both KCM and Mopani. But we gave them away. We literally gave them away. And now we are crying to these investors to do the right thing. Yet these were our assets until last year, until the other year. This was a golden opportunity. We should have learned from what Chile is doing, what Peru is doing, what other countries are doing to ensure that they benefit from these natural resources. It's a finite resource. It's going to come to an end. And why do we treat it like it will be there forever? It will not be there forever. Kansanshi, copper and gold mine, there's a $2.5 billion that the investor stole from the mine. We've been discussing this matter. There's no pathway that Musokotwane or President Hakainde Hichilema have provided to see how we can recover that $2.5 billion that was stolen from Kansanshi. Remember, Kansanshi mine, until recently, we owned 20% shareholding. That 20% shareholding has been amended, changed to a royalty payment, an annual royalty payment of 3.1%. So we've lost shareholder rights, such as to determine from the income that we earn what to do with that money. We used to own Kansanshi mine, which is a copper and gold mine. 20%. Badishtisha. Why it has been converted to a mineral royalty tax. Then the other large-scale mines, Kalumbila, and the other mines, we have no shares in there as government, no shares in such a large-scale operation. The mining policies have been benefits just the multinationals. They don't benefit our people as seen on the riots on the Copperbelt. So guys, until next time, until God blesses us with another opportunity, happy Kuomboka for those that have traveled to the Kuomboka. Enjoy the ceremony. I've been privileged to have been on that boat with His Majesty the King, the Litunga, and I sailed with it with our guest at the time, Guy Scott. And it was such a privilege to see what happens. Because, the boat only docks in the evenings, in the night in Limulunga. But that journey takes almost 12 hours from the plains to the upper grounds in Limulunga. So I was privileged to have been on that boat. And we discussed this matter last week, how government prevented His Majesty, the King from Lesotho, to be guest of honor. We discussed that, and I'm not going into details. But whatever it is, enjoy Kuomboka, whether you be watching it or whether you are in Mongo. So God bless you. Until next time, shalom, shalom.